Welcome, everybody, to the Monterey Peninsula Airport District Board of Directors meeting for April 20th, 2022. This is our regularly scheduled meeting. If you have cell phones, can you please turn them off or on to silent, please? Can we have a roll call?
Director Sani, I think you're on mute. Director Sani there.
I see your name up there. There she is.
You even get my mug. How about that?
Director Curcio,
Here.
Director Leffel,
Here.
Director Sabon,
Here.
Chair Miller.
Here. Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Curcio, can you help us with the pledge?
Sure, my pleasure. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag
of
of the United States of America
and to the
and to the
republic,
republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice
for all.
for all.
Thank you. Communications and announcements. Does any director have an announcement or communications? Do we have anything from staff?
Just that we officially and formally are masked optional in the terminal building everywhere,
Okay,
as are our airline partners.
very good. Thank you.
Did every one of the airlines opt for optional?
Optional masks.
Okay. I'll open it up to public comment. Any member of the public wishing to make a 3-minute address to us. Now's the time. It has to be unrelated to something that's already on the agenda. And it has to be within the scope and jurisdiction of this governing body.
Raise your hand if you have a comment.
People that are joining us remotely, if you want to speak, if you could just raise your remote hand. Okay, seeing none, I'll close public comment. Consent agenda. These items are routine by nature and come as a recommendation from staff for approval. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Well, first off, does anybody want to pull an item from consent agenda?
I have a comment, Mr. Chairman, if you will permit it.
Sure.
I can support the items on the consent agenda, which include the minutes of our last meeting and other of our committees. I would ask that in going forward, and this has been our practice for a long time, it's always kind of bothered me, that when we have discussions of future or the standing committees, the ad hoc committees, and the liaison representatives, we don't seem to ever provide any minutes of what was said, what was asked, and the answers and all that. So if we could have a little bit of documentation of what went on in the areas called board committee reports and acceptance of department reports, that would, I think, be a little bit better transparency. Thank you.
I'm not sure what you're asking for. You know, we can't take a transcript of what happens in the meeting. Usually we leave it up to the committee members to identify a shortcoming and install it. Were you asking for something different than that?
Yes, I am. I'm saying that there are board committee reports and departmental reports. At that point, we discuss anything that wasn't included in the minutes of those committees, and we ask questions. Staff answers those questions.
Here at the board meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
in person. And I think those questions and those comments should be addressed in the in the minutes because some very relevant information is provided here in those things. And that is particularly true of some of the liaison representatives. They make comments. There's no submitted written reports that we really required. But the ad hoc committees and the standing committees make verbal comments other than what is in their minutes of their meetings. Questions are asked and answered. I would like to see some of those comments addressed when somebody asks a question and somebody answers it.
Well,
Are you suggesting you're opposed to having any kind of
I
minutes?
just, one, I don't want to spend half the day talking about this.
We're not spending half the day, Mr. Chairman. I'm just asking, politely asking that we incorporate minutes of what transpires in our board meeting here.
And if that is not happening and you think something needs to be included in the minutes, we have an opportunity at this point to pull any item from the consent agenda and to vote on having things added. So that has worked for us in the past. I'm hearing what you're saying. I'm sure staff is hearing what you're saying. We just maybe need to give a little more direction when these things are happening. You're saying, let's let us know that you want this to be included in the minute. Okay, thank you.
Motion to approve?
Second,
All those, well, we're remote, so now we got to do everything by roll call. So Denise, can you help us out?
Director Sani,
Yes, I actually had my hand up. I'm sorry. Remotely.
Okay, I see that now.
Understand. We're all getting used to this ultimately. I wanted to clarify with Director Sabo, what does he feel is not, I mean, I believe our actions are documented. And I know that, what do you feel is missing, Bill or Director Sabo?
What is missing is if anybody asks the question regarding something that wasn't included in the Budget and Finance Committee's written report or the minutes of that meeting, if somebody asks the question of staff and there's a response, I'm guessing I would like to have that question and some brief summary of the response included in that. For any of the standing committees, action ad hoc committees, and liaison and representatives. If I report that TAMC provided a letter of support for the funding of the airport terminal, I would like that is part of my TAMC report and recorded, just like we do the board minutes out there. We record what discussions went on and what conclusions were drawn. You know, that's what I'm asking for. The dialogue that goes on in regarding the board committee reports.
Okay,
So
Someone who did meeting minutes early on in my career at IBM, it's challenging. And I think maybe we can take this offline and look at if there's something in particular that's missing. But, the hard part is, what do you, what don't you, where does it go ultimately? So that's why I asked the question if there was something specifically. I hear you're looking from all of our regional updates. So often I feel like the boards I'm on, there isn't anything, noteworthy, at least recently with AMBAG, for example, there hasn't been things related to the airport directly. But so I'm hearing from you, it's when our interaction with the outside agencies, is that fair?
No. Maybe I could ask for at a later time that our district council provide us some explanation of what's to be included in minutes of the activities of this board or any board.
okay, sounds good.
So we had
Okay. So we were doing a roll call vote. And if there are no other questions, well, wait a second. I do need to open up for public comment. Any member of the public wishing to make a comment on this issue? Please raise your hand. Your virtual hand. Hearing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Director Sani? Director Curcio?
Yes.
Director Leffel?
Yes,
Director Sabo?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes. Thank you. We have no deferred consent items. Regular agenda. Update to the Administrative and Personnel Policy Manual. Mr. Lapierre, who is helping us out with that one?
That will be Mr. Schubert.
Okay.
Good afternoon, board members. Let me pass something out real quick. And for and for ease of reference, you all hear me okay? Okay. So I just passed out, and for ease of reference, Director Sani and Director Leffel, I just passed out a quick, or I just sent to you by email, a quick summary of the modifications that were made on the administrative and personnel manual. This is a review, what I will call a wholesale or a complete review of the administrative and personnel manual. Some revisions were made. There are a couple of areas, as I mentioned in the staff report, where we are going to recommend some additional changes. Those will be coming at a future date. But generally speaking, we updated the rules and regulations or the personnel manual so that it does comply with the current state of the law as it is at the moment. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have or go into a further dialogue if you'd like me to in any particular area.
Okay, very good. I'll open it up to questions from the board. Let's start with Director Sabo.
Okay, I haven't had a chance to review all these potential changes here. But I did have a couple of questions on one, the grievance procedure,
Yes.
and also the area called request for information and media contact. This is on page 226.
Hang on, let me get to that real quick. Page 2-26.
Yeah. And let's see. Got so much paper now. I've lost track of myself here. Under the formal steps of a grievance, there's an appointment of a fair hearing officer. And that fair hearing officer is appointed from a list of identified candidates. I'm not sure what that means. And who does the picking of the identified candidates?
So it is actually just identified just in the next phrase after candidates. They shall be either airport department heads who are not involved in the grievance or in the discipline being heard and who do not supervise any of the involved employees.
Okay, who does the picking?
Typically the executive director will consult with district council as to who would be eligible, and the ultimate picking is done by the executive director.
Okay.
excuse me, Scott, it says on here, the employee may select one from the identified candidates.
My question was, who identifies the identified candidates?
Yeah, the identified candidates are the candidate list is selected. The candidate list is selected by the executive director in conjunction with district council.
Okay.
And the reason why it's not further identified is it depends on who is eligible will depend on who is making the complaint, from what department that individual is coming from.
Okay. And then continuing on with that same line of thinking, we have the final step called the executive director. The executive director who did was participating in the development of who was going to be a hearing officer and shall issue a determination within 10 calendar days, which shall be final. There is no point at which a grievant, an employee can go beyond that step. And in our governance manual right now, we have a provision for in the unusual event that an employee is not satisfied with the process, they can come to the board. And I'm not sure I can agree with all that. And why is all of this focused around the executive director with no appeal to a higher authority, and i.e. the board? And I don't know who to ask that question of, because I don't know who created this manual.
Well, we took what you currently had and we updated it. So the grievance process, and let me start with sort of maybe from a 10,000-foot aerial view. If there's an MOU in place, that MOU and the grievance procedure contained in the MOU will supersede over this, because that's an MOU that applies to those.
Contractual, that's labor law.
Okay. So,
But if it's with one of our what's the term? Unrepresented employees, and also managerial staff who may or may not be represented, then where is the final appeal? In other words, everything seems to be rested with the executive director, all the final authorities and all that. And I'm a little concerned that there is no appeal.
yeah, let me take a look. This is the first reference that you had mentioned. I'm looking up the governance manual right now to take a look and see what it says.
Are we general law or?
General law.
To the chair and to Director Curcio, could I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
And it's a question that Bill just asked. Who wrote this document?
I would assume it came from our district council office.
This document was written by legal counsel. It has been modified by legal counsel since its original inception. This is a modification of the original document. So tracing it back, it probably originated with David Willoughby and maybe Mr. Prentice. It's been updated at least 3 times since I've been here by Scott Huber's firm.
And so, Scott, did you do the updates, or why, whoever in your office, why are they not on this call?
Well, because they're not on the call because I didn't invite them to. I'm happy to handle it. If you'd like me to get Dave Ritchie on the phone, I'm sure he can jump on right now.
Okay, I'll wait my turn, but I've got several questions, and I do think we needed more of a review and, kind of an overall of what was changed. I see we were emailed. I know you just emailed that, but I reviewed this last night, and I don't have enough context to make a decision today personally, but I'll let the conversation, and I'll wait my turn. Thank you.
Scott, since you're looking at the governance manual, I have the page out of the governance manual that
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
it's page 6.
Yeah, I'm looking at it and it's,
Only if the grievance has not been resolved by one of these early reviews, and they're talking about the review process that was described here. Does the matter come before the board of directors?
yeah,
And I have attended one of those grievance procedures. Yeah.
okay.
So that's my comment about that. And the other question I had is,
Well, let's wait till the response from the first one.
Yeah,
And
so,
you can ask your
so,
second
so
one.
the first one is, I will tell you that if, you know, we need to make these two match. So if you'd like to add into the document we're looking at now, if you'd like to add in that sentence, if the grievance has not been resolved by one of these earlier reviews and it comes to the board, we can add that. If you'd like to adopt the amended version that you have, then when the governance manual is modified, I'll remove that sentence.
well, it'd be my preference to add what is in the governance manual right now. And if I can explain my rationale for doing that, there's no suggestion that there's anything untoward going on at the airport. But if in fact, in future years, with this policy manual, there seems to be a whole climate of discrimination, for example, or don't speak up or you'll be, you can kind of be terminated, or you'll end up with an adverse decision. And there is no authority outside of the management staff and the executive director. There's no way to appeal all that, which is, I think, maybe one of the roles, as we identified in the governance manual, one of the roles of the board of directors to hear an appeal after it's gone through a very rigorous process. Then I think we've done a disservice to our staff.
We're conflating two different things.
We are.
We're mixing two different things.
We are.
Yes. This is related to employee discipline. What you're talking about here.
Yeah.
It's related to employee discipline, has nothing to do with an allegation of hostile work environment, harassment, or some other complaint. Has nothing to do with that. This is only related to employee discipline. And I will take just a moment to say, we have investigated allegations of hostile work environment, allegations of, related, and I'll use the overarching umbrella, related generally to good working conditions, if I can use that term. And every time we have done those investigations, the employees have said, who we've spoken with, they have all said they haven't experienced harassment, they haven't experienced a hostile work environment. That is one of the subjects we'll talk about in closed session a little bit more detail today. But I can tell you, we have not found any sustained findings of.
My role as a board member here, if I may respond, is not to just say, well, we never had a bomb drop on the airport before. My view is to going forward,
Right.
things that could possibly happen. And I'm not limiting my comments just harassment. Maybe there is a point at which there is a systemic attempt to single out an employee and not.
Well,
I'm speaking, Mr. Chairman.
well, I have to
Let-
object to some of your speaking here. You are throwing out allegations with no substance to them. And I would comment further. We haven't really had allegations made. We've had rumors told to us, and we've looked into those rumors, but we've never had an employee, at least that I'm aware of in recent history, come with the specific allegations. We hear rumors and we've investigated the rumors. So, I'm getting a little bit concerned with some of the language you're using. I understand where you're headed here, and I kind of support where you're going. There is a conflict here between two documents, and we need to fix that. I just, some of the editorializing that you're doing right now, I
I'm
don't
not
think we
exactly
need.
sure what you're saying, but the extent.
You're making allegations with no
I haven't
substance.
alleged anything.
Yes, you did.
What did I allege?
You alleged that there was mistreatment of employees that was happening here.
There was an allegation by an employee.
There
I
was
said
not
it
an
in the
allegation,
hearing.
there was
I
a
said it
rumor.
in the hearing and you said it on hearing,
How many years ago are we talking about?
10 years ago.
It was longer than that.
Okay. If we, what I'm saying is I'm objecting to the language in the manual here. I've tried to give examples to elaborate on this thing. If we are going to always stay with, we never did that before, I think that's a poor excuse for continuing to do something that I find a little bit offensive. And I think that an employee needs a path to the board for final resolution for an appeal. And if we, that's my contention, whether it be for allegations of harassment or it's a simple reason where they are being terminated for something they didn't believe they did. And right now, the way it's written in the employee manual, it seems a little incestuous within the management group where you can't get out of it and there's no place to go other than to file a lawsuit. And so that's kind of my contention. Now, you can always, as our district council, you can say, oh, that would never happen. But it doesn't say, that's not what the words say.
No, as it relates to employee discipline, my comment was, if you would like to have the final appeal be with the board, we need to synchronize these two documents, the governance.
And
manual this.
that's my preference.
And
And
my
I was
comment-
trying to
and my
explain
comment was-
why.
Hang on, let me finish.
Yeah.
My comment was, if it's the pleasure of the board, we will add that sentence in to the administrative and personnel manual, if you'd like. Allegations of hostile work environment, harassment in the workplace are totally separate and not, this doesn't deal with those. This is only for employee discipline. We do have separate policies related to allegations of harassment in the workplace, discrimination in the workplace, and all of the other, what I'll call constitutional protections that employees enjoy. There is a method and a policy by which they can make those allegations, those complaints. And it either goes to the executive, it either goes to their department head, to the executive director, or to district council. When we hear about those, we will investigate them. And if there is, and we'll bring those findings to the board. Good, bad, or indifferent, we will bring those findings to the board. And we'll deal with them. So to date, I can tell you the investigations we've had have all been unsustained. The appeal or the meeting that you were talking about that was that happened, I was not involved in that. That occurred before my time. And it was, to my recollection, not with your previous council, but the one before that. My recollection, it was not with Dave Prentice.
It was with Willoughby.
was with Willoughby.
And it wasn't my purpose here to dredge up everything that has gone wrong in the past.
I understand.
And I'm trying to set a precedent here for full disclosure and fair treatment of folks that work here at the airport, whether it be for sexual harassment, and that I presume I didn't read all that, or not sexual, but harassment,
Yeah.
or constitutional right, but also the extent to which there is my climate that says, we don't like you. And we're going to do things to, we're going to look at every possible violation that you might have incurred, and we'll make the final decision. I think there needs to be an open forum of a path for employees to say, I got a real grievance here. And that's for unrepresented employees particularly.
Sure.
That was my purpose. It's going forward, not to make any accusations about what has happened in the past.
Sure.
You said you had a second question
I do.
or comment.
And that is on it says on policy 309, that's on page 325 of the manual. When a board member seeks clarification on informational items, the board member will always be referred directly to the executive director or an appropriate management personnel for information needed to supplement, upgrade, or enhance the member's knowledge. Which it tells me that if I want to know what's our current rate for renting a hangar, an empty hangar, and I ask one of our people that does that sort of thing, they're not allowed to tell me that without referring that to the executive director or their department manager to get back to me later on that subject. Our governance manual says different things about that, and it says the individual directors may appropriately make simple inquiries of or seek basic information from staff. So how do we reconcile those two things? And this is not an allegation that somebody did something wrong. I'm looking forward to on this.
I don't think those two are inconsistent. I think this is remember who this is for. This is for the employees,
Yes.
right? Employees will generally be told, hey, listen, if a board member comes to you for information, for simple information, that's great. This refers to supplement, upgrade, or enhance board members' knowledge. That's more than just, hey, how much is rent? That's more in depth. And that, to be very candid, should be information that should come from either a department head or from the executive director. But
The rental rate for a hangar?
no,
I'm not sure what you just said.
the clause where it says a board member seeks clarification on informational items, the board member will be referred directly to the executive director or appropriate management personnel for information needed to supplement, upgrade, or enhance the board member's knowledge. To me, that's more than a simple inquiry about how much rent is or who's renting a particular hangar. To me, that's more along the lines of, hey, what are we doing about upgrades to the TSA equipment? Or, for example, what are we doing about the mask policy? Are we going along with the TSA new? Those are more in depth. What I would suggest is
I understand the concept of policy questions and all that. I wanted to know in my objection here to the phraseology that if a staff member can answer a question that the public can ask and give them an answer, like the rate on a rental of a hangar, or I was reading your posted financial statements. What does that mean when it says violations? You get revenue from a violation. What does that line item mean on your published financial statement? A person in the public can ask that question, and I presume get an answer. And so I'm asking, why is it that a board member can't ask that question?
you can.
I can.
Yes.
Okay, well, it's a little fuzzy with all those words out there.
I think the important thing to remember what we're talking about here, the government code prohibits board members from directing employees which do not answer to them.
And I agree with that.
Right. Remember who this document is for. This document is for the employees. This gives the employee the ability to say, hey, you really need to go, if they're not comfortable giving you the information, if they think that it's in-depth information that's beyond their scope, then this gives them the ability to say, you need to go to the department head for that, or you need to go to the executive director for that. You can ask, there's no problem in asking the question. But again, remember who the document is for.
I remember, I know who this document is for, and the extent to which they answer a question, and I'm just spitballing potential questions out here, but this is a matter of public information, something that's already been cited, or it's a matter of our procedures here at the airport. If I ask a staff member who is down below the level of a manager, then apparently from what I read here, they can't answer that question without going to their manager and saying, can I tell them what the rental rate is?
I think you're misreading that.
And I think so too, but
Yeah, I don't.
Well,
you brought up your point. We can you'll have an opportunity, if we don't table this, to make recommendations for changes that we all can vote on.
Okay.
Okay. Director Leffel, you have your hand up. Was that something specific to this, or did you want to?
Well, I just wanted to say on this topic that I have found that if one or two people ask the same question, that sometimes it leads to the fact that we need to have a full board discussion on it. So it's really important that a department head or the executive director or our attorney, maybe all, are aware of the fact that there's some confusion around an issue or some information being sought, because it's important that we all benefit from the answers. So I think that is one thing that really speaks to the fact that if we each go one off to employees and say, you know, how many times a day are you cleaning the floor, then maybe it's important that we have a talk about that with all of us so that we're all aware of it. And I think that's one of the pieces. Without, I mean, we can continue to go through this, but I don't believe that any of us, with all of the pieces that we had to read for this meeting, which were considerable, probably had the time to go through this in depth.
Yeah,
And
that's-
maybe what we do is table this for next month and then set aside some time that we can discuss it.
Yeah, and if I can follow up on what Board Member Leffel said, I did send out this morning. We had some significant difficulty in modifying this agreement. I had to do it entirely in Adobe Acrobat because that's the version that I had. And Adobe Acrobat is not really a
Word document?
it's not, it was not, we tried converting it into Word and it really just went, all of the pagination and all of the formatting just went bonkers. So Adobe Acrobat is not really geared to be a word processing document. And so the only thing I could give you, which I sent today, and again, I fall on the sword, and I should have given that to you before. You know, I think I got it on Monday, and I just forgot to send it, was a side-by-side comparison of the old version and the new version. It's not the most helpful, particularly on short notice. And so I think there is some, it would be good to hear the other questions and concerns. related
And
to this
that was
document.
going to be my
Yeah.
thought. I was going to suggest that we table this, my recommendation, but I wanted to hear from all the other directors. So you would have an opportunity to go in and address, especially the ones like Director Sabo has pointed out, where you have inconsistencies between the two documents. Okay. Anything else, Director Leffel? I'll come back to you. If you have some questions, you'll be after Director Curcio specifically to this. Okay, Director Curcio, do you have anything?
Yeah, I have a couple of points, but before I go into that, I have to make a statement for the record, because there was a statement made by Director Sabo on the record, and I have to strongly object to the language that he was using, referring to a culture that exists at this airport that I completely disagree with. And then we find out that he's talking about an incident that happened over 10 years ago. I think that's wrong, and I'm stating for the record, I disagree with that. I do not believe we have a culture as indicated by Director Sabo. That being said, I do have a couple of questions of at will. So when I was reading this manual, I kind of felt that we almost glazed over at will. There's very little. And now I do see in this change sheet that we received this morning, it says at will employment draft policy attached. Where is it attached?
104.
So it's in the book?
Yep.
So is that where it's detailed?
Policy 104 is where that's detailed.
Okay, because that, I did not read that.
Was that, do you have a page number for that?
Yep, just a moment.
So is it 1-4?
No,
Where,
it
okay,
is. One dash nine.
I don't have 1-9. I have 1-7, 1-8.
Right after
It's-
one dash, if there is,
There's no page number on the bottom.
there's no page number on the bottom.
Okay, so it's, is, okay. So it's policy 104?
Yep.
Okay, that's my mistake. I did not see that. The original script I thought was not really in depth enough. I'm a little confused as to the overtime issue that's stated in your change. Was what it says, add a phrase in on-call maintenance that makes it clear that $50 premium for holidays when on call is only paid when the employee is actually available.
Dave, do you want to take that one?
Is that,
Certainly. Good morning, everybody. I've been kind of, I guess, stalking you via Zoom this morning briefly while you've considered this, but I wrote these recommendations for the changes to the policy at Scott's request, so I can speak to these. The section that you're talking about in policy 210, it says that there's a $50 holiday premium, but it doesn't speak to, and I'll go to the policy itself because I wrote the comments in the margins.
And
It
Dave,
doesn't, yeah,
I have incorporated the comments into a final version. I edited this in Adobe Pro. So the comments are not in the margins. They're actually in the document themselves.
oh, I'm working from my, I don't have that document, but I'm working from my
Me.
copy. So I can explain it to you, but I just got to go to policy 210 here. Give me a second. Apologize for the delay. Oh, 10. All right. So the issue here is that when a person is not available during a period of time when they are on call, the regular on-call pay isn't available to them. But the $50 holiday premium isn't carved out if they're not actually available on the holiday itself. And so this would correct that issue. I think that I would show you on policy 210. Trying to find it. Oh, yes. It's the flat rate additional on-call compensation of $50 for each holiday during the 7-day period. The problem is if somebody is on call and they're not available, they don't get the on-call regular pay, but it's not clear in here that they also don't get that extra $50 flat rate for their availability on the holiday itself. So that flat rate kicks in for each holiday in that entire pay period. But if they're not available on the holiday, then there's no cure for that person not getting the extra holiday, getting the holiday premium, if that makes sense.
it does. So that this is inserted as a clarification.
Correct. That if you are not available on the actual holiday, you can't get the holiday premium for the availability on call.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. Because you're going to assign somebody else to cover the on-call, and realistically, they should be the ones who receive that holiday premium.
So Mr. Chair, I have no other questions or comments, but I really strongly agree with the idea that this topic should be tabled until the next meeting and have all the board members have some extra opportunity. This happened to be a month where we were basically flooded with a tremendous amount of information to try to cover for one meeting. And some of it came in last minute, so I would definitely be supportive of tabling. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Director Leffel.
Thank you. I had one question and it's on 3-12. And it's more just, I guess, who does what and how do we do it? The poll notice program, how do you monitor that? Who does it and how do you know it's kept up to date?
Well, that's done by DMV, isn't it, automatically?
Right. We get reports from DMV on a regular basis, annual, I shouldn't say regular, annual basis about that.
So,
Mary Ann, this is Tim. We, when new employees are hired, we submit a request for DMV information. It's sent to us annually on the hire date. We maintain those records. We look for items that could potentially not allow an employee to drive a vehicle. We monitor those, we maintain those files. When somebody leaves the district, we have the employee information stopped by DMV, and we keep those all on file, and they're part of our employment records.
okay, thanks, Tim. I just was curious in how DMV is not always the most efficient. So I didn't know if we had a way that we followed up or if it just automatically did come like it's supposed to.
So far, the process has worked fairly well with the DMV because it's all computer generated.
Okay, good.
Policy, what is a poll notice? What does that mean?
I don't have anything else. I was a little like Director Sabo, where I didn't think some of the changes we'd made in the last couple of years had been incorporated into this document. So I would really prefer not to spend a lot of time on it today, I guess is what I'm saying, until I can go through and see the differences in the changes and how it relates to prior documents.
I think everybody's leaning towards tabling this, but is there anything else?
No.
Well, and then now Lisa,
Yes, I'm grateful. I think we do need to table this, and I've got several questions. Mr. Ritchie, I appreciate you being here, and I would request when we review this again, that we're given, I'm used to PowerPoint. That's the world I come from, corporate, but just at least, 2 to 4 slides with kind of what's been done and where things are at would be very helpful. I did read this last night late. In fact, I got up this morning to reread it, and I've got all kinds of questions. And part of that is just my HR background too. So however it makes most sense. But one of the things, in all of these policies and documents, and they're difficult, but you're ultimately setting the stage for the behaviors and the type of environment you want. And I hope we as a board really, I appreciate that we're kind of taking this pause to ensure that we're, that we've got the policies and procedures in place overall for, the behaviors and the environment that we want. So thank you. And I'm in full favor of, tabling this and having more review as needed.
did you want to go over some of the concerns you've had? That's what our council's asking for now, or do you want to follow up with a written document to them?
I would like a conference call. I know it's at least a 30-minute conversation, and I wrote that, and I've got tabs of questions. And it never shows on the video well, but
Okay.
so I think it's a conversation. I think it's
Okay.
Just
That's another option.
Yep, thank you.
Okay,
So do you want a motion?
yeah, we'll make a motion I did hear Director Sabo ask the question. I'll try to answer it as best I can. Poll program is by DMV. Like Tim was saying, people that operate our motor vehicles, we can supply their driver's license number to the state. And if
We let DMV know that.
we
know.
tell DMV that this is an
That's
employee,
what I wanted to know.
and then DMV notifies us if they're arrested, cited, or there's an action taken against their driver's license, like put on probation or suspended or revoked,
Okay,
we'll be notified.
okay, that answers the question.
Or, and also, if more importantly, if their license expires, and that's my past experience with poll programs, that was most of the notices we had to follow up on because people's driver's license expired and they never got them renewed.
Mr. Chair.
Chairman, I'd like a chance to respond to Director Curcio's remarks that were off topic, and when he suggested what I was alleging, I'd like to respond to that on the record, since he asked it to be on the record.
Sure.
My comments, Director Curcio, were not that we have a culture that's at all flawed here.
But
at the
that's what
airport.
you intimated.
Can I say what I want
Sure,
to say,
go ahead.
please? I wasn't suggesting that we have a flawed culture here at the airport. When I prefaced my remarks by saying, when I look at these policies, this is for what's going forward, not what has been in the past, what is going forward. And what one of the things that was a consideration for me in looking at all of the policies, particularly the ones I cited, was to prevent a culture going forward by when everybody here has now expired or gone off the board or leaves the airport, that this policy goes forward. It's not to suggest that there's a flawed culture here, but to rather prevent one in the future. And that's what my remarks are. So I wanted to correct that.
Thank you for clarifying that. But that's not exactly what you said. So you should go back and listen to it.
Well,
because
I'll audit my remarks a little bit better. You know,
Okay.
I never said anything wrong before, but there's
Okay.
always that possibility.
Okay, thank you.
You ready for a motion?
I am.
Okay, I move that we table this item for the next meeting.
Second,
I think Bill beat you to it just with that time lag virtually. So we have a first by Director Curcio, second by Director Sabo. Roll call vote, please, Ms. Adams.
Director Sani,
Yes.
Director Curcio,
Yes.
Director Leffel,
yes,
Director Sabo,
Yes.
Chair Miller,
Yes. Okay. Let's move on to item number 2. That would be local agency formation commission, Monterey County Special District alternate ballot. Mr. Lapierre, can you help us out with that?
I certainly can. I believe it was last month, if not, it was the month prior, that the board was asked to cast your ballot for representative for special districts to the LAFCO board. You did that. You're now being asked to cast your ballot for a representative to act as the alternate to LAFCO for special districts. The two candidates are David Kong from Greenfield Public Recreation District and the Greenfield Cemetery District, and Gail Morton from Monterey Coast Water District. It's the pleasure of the board to cast your ballot.
Okay. I don't think does anybody have any questions on this process? It was the last meeting. I did miss that part of it, but we did endorse Director Leffel's candidacy and voted for her, and she was successful in being reelected to LAFCO. Does anybody have any questions? I think we see their resumes and points. Okay, Lisa?
Thank you, Chair. I assume this position was re-advertised. Did LAFCO re-advertise it? Or what?
Can I answer?
Yes, go ahead.
So the way the system is set up is that how many candidates run for the regular seat, and then only those people who ran for that seat who were not elected can run for the alternate. So in order to be an alternate, you have to have run for the regular seat. So that's why there are two candidates. To go for the regular seat, there were three. One is eliminated because they were elected, and then the remaining two are in the runoff. Had there only been two candidates running last month, the person who got the second highest vote would then be the alternate. So it just kind of depends every time, but it's not re-advertised because it's not open up to all the directors of 43 districts.
Thank you for clarifying that. I forgot that process.
So
I do appreciate.
are you going to ask for public comment and then directors?
Yes, I am, and I forgot to do that last time, where we don't have any public in the meeting here today, so that's what throws me. But for this one, do we have any public comment before we put it out to a vote?
You
Looks-
do.
You got a hand raised.
Okay. That would be, it's hard for me to read. Oh, okay. Mayor, do you have anything you wish to comment on? Oh, Jean. Go ahead, Jean.
I just want you to know that you do have an audience.
Thank you.
You felt no one was there, but we're here. Thank you.
It's not that we hope no one was there. Okay. Any other member of the public wanting to comment? Okay, hearing none, we close that. Do we have a nomination for one of these two candidates?
I would like to nominate David Kong.
Second.
Okay. We have a first and second. Can we have a roll call?
Carl, can we just discuss it 1 second?
Sure.
I just would like to say that David has shown an interest in LAFCO, and it has worked extremely well to have an alternate that comes from the Salinas Valley, so that when we have items that are of extreme importance to the Salinas Valley, that we have someone who has an opinion and who can be counted on to voice that opinion. And in the case of a couple of the alternates over the last 4 years that I have served, we have actually had our regular member pass their time on to the alternate because the alternate was more familiar with the information and with the topic. And so that is why I believe that David would be a really good candidate for this.
Okay, thank you. Any other director wishing to comment?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Just a point of order here. I'm a little confused as to our process for selection here. I guess is the first one to speak up and say, I nominate this person, wins the contest here, and then we vote on that. And how come we don't say, okay, this is my preference, go through each one of the directors, and we have two candidates. The person that gets the most positive votes wins.
Okay.
What?
Well,
just
no,
asking about the process.
Yeah, I'm trying to follow our regular process here, and that's what we would normally do. But if you want to speak up for the other candidate, or if anybody else would like to bring their name forward,
We have two candidates, and all I'm suggesting is each one of the directors indicates who of the two candidates that are proposed to us, who their preference is, and that candidate gets the nod, gets our positive vote.
Well, that's one way to do it. That sound,
Well, then I have an amended or counter motion, I don't know how to do this, but then I would like to say, I would like to see Gail Morton considered.
So you have adopted, the board has adopted Rosenberg's Rules of Order.
Yeah,
Rosenberg's Rules of Order allows for up to 3 motions on the table at the same time, provided each motion garners a second. Under the rules of procedure, it's as they're written out, the last motion that's made with a second is the first motion to be voted on. So you're welcome to make a motion if you'd like. If it receives a second, then it'll be on the table for consideration.
okay. Thank you for explaining that.
I move that Gail Morton be considered by the board
Okay,
for this position.
thank you. Do we have a second on Gail's, us entertaining Gail's nomination?
We're going to be able to do comment, correct, to the chair?
Sure, I've asked several times, but let's deal with this motion first. Did you wish to second the motion?
No, I never heard from Ms. Morton, so
Okay,
I can't nominate under the circumstances.
okay. Sorry, motion dies for lack of a second. I will open it up now, once again, to public comment. We'll just go right down the road. Director Sabo,
What's the question?
public comment. Do you have comment on this? Do you have any comment?
Director comment.
Yes, director
On
comment.
the first motion.
Yeah. Director Sani, if you're asking, I already opened this up to public comment and we only had one person speak. To remind us we have an audience.
I meant director comment. Thank
Okay,
you.
Director Sabo?
Yes, I have a little concern about David Kong. I don't know him personally, nor has he contacted me, or do I don't even know what he does, except he's on the special district for the cemetery in Greenfield. I thought Gail Morton had a little bit more experience with government than David Kong did, and that's kind of why I was favoring her. I think she was on the Marina City Council for a while and the Marina Coast Water District. So experience matters.
Okay,
That's my comment.
thank you. Director Curcio.
I have no further comment.
Director Leffel, anything further?
No, I have nothing further.
Director Swanee?
Just like our last vote, I think it's important when you're asking people to vote for you that you reach out or share a little bit about yourself. And I know when I've requested votes in other things or support, I try to do that. So I look forward to I know Miss Morton in kind of, but I didn't hear from her. And so and I just wanted to make that comment.
Okay,
I appreciate all that LAFCO does, and I think their guidance is very important for our community too. Thank you.
okay, thank you. So we have only one issue before us, and that is, do we support or do we vote for David Kong as alternate special district representative to LAFCO? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Sani,
Yes.
Director Curcio,
Yes.
Director Leffel,
Yes,
Director Sabo,
No.
and Chair Miller.
Yes. Okay, passes 4-1. And that's all we have. Before I go on, I did skip public comment for item number G1, update to our personnel policy manual. Forgive me. We have 2 members of the public attending virtually. Do either one of you want to make comment on that? Somebody has their,
Had her hand up. I'm not sure if that was old.
Director Swanee, you wanted to make a comment? Go ahead.
Would like to. I want to acknowledge the ladies that are on the window that I'm looking at, and I saw them all along as one board member. I think, and I texted our attorney, I think we just need to make sure, I'm not exactly sure what the board is seeing, but I think we.
I'm sorry, what is?
What you're seeing in the boardroom with the screen. But I think we've got new technology. We made the investment in this new technology, which is wonderful from a remote perspective. And I think we just need to make sure that whatever is also on the screen in the room is available for the public. If we can, maybe we'll obviously have to work with our AV people or things like that. But ultimately, the screen that I see is the picture of the boardroom and the two other directors that are attending remotely. But then I also have the panelists there, so I can see when hands get raised or things of that nature. So there's a little more facilitation.
And it can be seen here, except my vision is not as good as it used to be. And things are a little fuzzy for the font that we're using for me. But I do rely on staff to yell out if I'm missing something. And they've been pretty good about doing that. And my fellow board members have been correcting me too. And I appreciate the help. It takes a village to run one of these meetings.
I appreciate that too.
Okay.
And
Thank
I'm
you.
glad to hear that. And I just wanted to acknowledge that the ladies on the call were, well aware and appreciate their attendance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, that does it for our public regular meeting. We'll be going into closed session and then we'll be re-adjourning later on in the afternoon. Why don't we go ahead and take a
Reconvening.
reconvening? Isn't that what I said?
No, it's re-adjourning.
Well,
How many
reconvening.
times are we gonna
Thank you.
adjourn? It takes a village.
It takes a village. Okay, we will now come back at 10:20, let's say. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody, to, it is still it's still October, it's still April 20th, 2022. The time is 2:06. We are coming out of closed session. We had a long closed session. Legal counsel, Mr. Huber, can you recap that for us, please?
Certainly. Make sure the microphone's on. Certainly, as to in closed session, item number 1, the Monterey Peninsula Airport District entered into a settlement agreement or approved a settlement agreement with the city of Monterey regarding that item that was listed as item number 1. The motion was made by board member Sabo, seconded by board member Curcio. And the vote was as follows. 4 board members voted yes, 0 voted no, 1 voted to abstain. The board members in the affirmative were board members in alphabetical order: Curcio, Leffel, Miller, and Sabo. And the abstention was by board member Sani.
Is it appropriate? Go ahead.
As to item number 2, there is no reportable action taken in closed session.
Is it appropriate to have item number 1 open to public comment, or did we already address that at the beginning of the
To
meeting?
do it before we went into.
That should have been done.
It was.
It was done before we went into closed session.
And I don't remember doing that, but if any member of the public wants to address an item of closed session, we'll entertain that now. Please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, we will move on. Mr. Lapierre.
We have actions for the board to take regarding resolution 1818, which is a resolution that would rescind and vacate resolution 1781 and 1782. the certification of the addendum of the final environmental impact report, and the approval of the modifications to the airport master plan project. This would rescind previous actions on the part of the board.
Okay. Do we have a staff report to go along with that, or are we just, is staff going to respond to questions we may have from the board level?
We will respond to questions that you may have from the board level.
Okay. If we're not going to open this up, we're not going to have a presentation, I will open it up to public comment. Any member of the public that wishes to comment on item number G, as in George 3, Resolution 1818, please raise your hand.
There is a hand raised.
Okay.
Mayor Kerr. No, the other one.
Okay, Ms. Brown, you have your hand up. You wish to comment on item number G3?
Hello, board. This is Marlena Brown from Naval Support Activity Monterey. I'm having trouble hearing what Mr. Lapierre said. If you wouldn't mind repeating it closer to the mic, I would really appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Much better. Thank you.
All right.
Basically, we are considering amending our resolution 1818. And excuse me, we are considering resolution 1818, which is amending resolution number 1781 and 1782.
Actually rescinding and vacating.
Rescinding and vacating.
Correct.
Mr. Chair, let me take a stab at just a.
Please help me out here.
A brief overview. For
community.
those participating at home, this is Scott Huber, District Counsel. As a result of the litigation between the city of Monterey and the Monterey Peninsula Airport District, the court made a ruling which determined that there were among all of the things that were appropriate in the addendum, that there was one or two items that needed to be further analyzed or further updated as a result of the court action. We are, as directed by the court and as agreed upon with the city of Monterey, we are rescinding the previous actions taken by the board to adopt the two resolutions and adopt the addendum. Following this item, we will come back with a revised addendum, but I will hold that one until this action is taken. These need to be done separately. This first action is to rescind the action taken to approve those two resolutions and certification of the final EIR and approval of the modifications as contained in the addendum itself.
Okay, thank you. Director Sabo, do you have any? Oh, let me go back. So any member of the public wishing to comment on us rescinding the two prior resolutions, rescinding and vacating 1781, 1782. Any member of the public wishing to address that? Okay, I don't see any. Let's start. Director Sabo, do you have any questions?
I just point of clarification for our district council. I haven't been reading this closely enough because I understood it, but you said we are rescinding our adoption of the amendment, the previous amendment.
The previous addendum.
Addendum.
Yes.
Sorry, addendum. And
That's-
we're also rescinding our certification of the EIR.
No.
No. What was it you said about the EIR?
What I was trying to say is that the addendum was an addendum to the EIR. The original EIR was never challenged by anybody.
Okay, so we have two resolutions here, and I apologize to my fellow board members if I'm missed something here, but we have one to rescind the addendum itself.
Yeah.
And then what was the other one?
Let me, if you take a look at the agenda, it's actually written out just in the basic agenda. The two resolutions The first one was related to the certification of the addendum to the final EIR. And the second is related to the approval of the modifications to the airport master plan. Only those two are being rescinded. The certification of the addendum and the approval of the modifications that were being made at that time.
Okay,
Only those two.
now, when we, if we actually rescind the approval of the modifications to the master plan project, are the modifications gone forever, or have they been redone and are they included in the addendum?
They have been redone and they are included in the next item that we will talk about that's listed as item number 4 on the agenda.
Okay,
And
All right.
5.
all right.
4 and 5.
Now I understand. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank
So
you.
first we have to get rid of the two that the
You-
court had an issue with.
Yes,
Then
have to-
we're enacting the two based on settlement talks with the city of Monterey who brought the concern.
yeah, and not just on that, but yeah, you are correct in your statement. So first you unwind what was previously done related to the addendum. And then the second two, item number 4 and item number 5 it is a revised addendum based on the court's order and in conjunction with settlement discussions with the city of Monterey.
Okay.
So since city of Monterey brought the item, the court ruled in the city's favor on 1 or 2 of the items that they had alleged. Those are the items that we have then come to terms with the city on so that there's no more dispute about it.
Very good. Thank you. Anything else, Director Sabo?
No, so just to be clear, I have a copy of the revised addendum to the final airport master plan environmental impact report.
Yes.
When we rescind the approval of the modifications to the master plan project, we rescind those, they go away. Now, when we go down to resolution number 4, are the changes to the master plan in this document here?
The addendum contains, the addendum that's in your hand that is dated March 2022, that contains the modifications.
Okay, that's what I want to be clear of. Okay, thank you.
And Kevin and Chris, I hope you're following along and correcting me if I'm wrong, but I haven't seen you jump in here yet. So that's what we're doing.
Okay.
Thank you. Director Curcio.
I have no questions.
Director Leffel, do you have any questions?
I do not. Thank you.
Oh, and I have no questions either. I will entertain a motion to approve.
I would have moved that we adopt resolution number 1818.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Director Leffel, seconded by Director Curcio. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Curcio.
Yes.
Director Leffel.
Yes.
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 And so the record is, just so the record is clear, Mr. Chair, Director Sani is absent.
Yeah, and we're thinking the same thing. I realized I forgot to make that announcement at the beginning. But immediately following closed session, Director Sani had to leave for another engagement. So she has been excused for the remainder of the meeting. Okay, very good. Let's move on to item number G4. Mr. Lapierre, can you continue to help us out here?
Absolutely. This is resolution number 1819. It's a resolution by the Monterey Peninsula Airport District to approve and certify the revised addendum to the final environmental impact report, the mitigation, monitoring, and reporting program, and related sequel findings and statement of overriding considerations for the minor project modifications to the approved Monterey Regional Airport Master Plan. don't ask me to say that.
Again, yes.
I think at this point, it would be appropriate, Mr. Chair, that Chris Morello and Judy Kraus have a presentation for you to consider as you look forward to action on this.
Very good. Who would like to start off?
I will have Judy start.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you for having me, Chairman Miller and members of the board. Sorry, I missed the last text. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll get into the presentation. Okay. Okay, so this presentation is on the revised addendum to an environmental impact report for the airport master plan and proposed modifications. I'm going to skip the next slide because we already talked about your actions, so I need to.
Judy, I would just keep it because we do want them to understand. I will just say there are going to be two actions. So this is items G4 and G5.
And
The
G5.
presentation
Okay.
is for both.
Correct. Okay, so I'll go through this slide, sorry. So the revised addendum certification and project approval action procedures for those two resolutions that Chris just mentioned will follow the same procedure. Introduction of the item by Chair Miller, District Council Scott Huber will weigh in, and then like Chris just said, this presentation covers both the refined project, the revised addendum, and the CEQA environmental process and findings. At that time, public comment will be allowed, limited to 3 minutes per person until closed by Chair Miller and District Council Scott Huber. At that point, board comments and discussion, and if appropriate, a motion by the board and board action. So I wanted to just take us back a little bit and remind us of the airport master plan objectives. These were set at the beginning of the master plan and are fourfold: to enhance airport safety, prepare for future aviation demand, incorporate airport sustainability goals, and increase airport self-sufficiency. The airport master plan project modifications considered in the previous EIR addendum, which you just set aside, are now considered again in the revised addendum. And I wanted to just really briefly remind everybody, bring them up to speed. So the short-term project in the master plan was a safety project to shift taxiway A farther from the runway center line to better meet FAA standards. And that required some reorganization of the airport landside structures, both on the south side and the north side. So this side is the approved project. The minor modifications were really just in the first couple phases of that multi-component project. The first step was to relocate general aviation hangars from this side over to the north side. And originally there was going to be a road, you can see it here, that went from the north, that north aviation area out to Delray Gardens Drive. The project modification before you now is to remove just this section where it would connect out to Delray Gardens Drive and shift that out of the short-term project program to the long-term. Instead, this section would still be built, which completes the vehicle service road around the entire east end of the airport. So that was the first project modification, to remove the connection to Delray Gardens Drive to the long-term and continue to and to complete this vehicle service road. What that means is that the hangars and the ARF building that are relocated to the north side would continue to use Airport Road out through the Kona neighborhood. The second proposed project modification was to take this ARF building, which was to be relocated originally in the first phase, and it was moved to the second phase. It will be moved to the north side, which was what was considered in the EIR originally. The only difference besides its phasing is that this building will now serve only on airport emergencies, which ensures consistency with City of Monterey policies regarding additional truck trips and vehicular traffic through Airport Road and the Kona neighborhood. So those are the two main project changes. They were looked at in the original addendum as well as this one. This table is from the addendum. It just goes back through what I just explained on the approved project and then what the project modifications were. Again, you can see they're focused in phases 1 and 2 of the short-term project. The rest of the project remains exactly the same. Once the hangars have been and the ARF building have been relocated, that opens up this area so that the terminal and apron can be pushed further back from the runway, and taxiway A can be shifted further as well. Okay, so that's the short version of the proposed modifications. In the short term, we'll talk a little bit more about the long-term ones in the second half of this presentation, but I wanted to just stop and go over the environmental analysis. This was from the original addendum as well as in this revised one, but those changes really just reduce some of the short-term impacts that were talked about in the original program EIR. Biological resources, impacts to those would be reduced because of less ground disturbance with the connection to Delray Gardens Drive removed. Air quality, greenhouse gas emissions would be less from vehicular traffic because the ARF building would no longer serve off-airport emergencies. That also removes some of the previously identified policy inconsistencies with Delray Oaks and Monterey general plans. Public services in terms of fire protection would still be satisfactory according to FAA standards for airports. And then the vehicular traffic is the one that was changed a little bit because now those first two parts of the project would continue to use Airport Road. So those trips from the hangars and the ARF facility, which are not a lot of trips because it's not, a big traffic generator, but those trips would be offset by the removal of vehicular trips associated with existing landscape operations on the north side. The traffic analysis looked at what the gain would be, and the landscape operations, once removed, would result in about 30 less average daily trips once the hangars and the ARF are relocated. Okay. So the additional airport master plan project modifications considered in this revised EIR addendum focus more on the long-term part of the program. Court findings in January 2022 both affirmed some of the analysis in the previous addendum, and they asked for some clarification on some of the analysis. So on the confirmed side, the court agreed that this use of traffic offsets from the landscape storage facilities was proper under CEQA, and that it did cancel out the potential impacts of the relocation of general aviation hangars and the ARF in the modified short-term program. The court also confirmed that any claim that the district canceling their fire service agreement with the City of Monterey, and that resulting in future impacts because the city would have to build a new station, was speculative and did not result in a material change in the circumstances or reasonably foreseeable new environmental impacts. So those are things that the court upheld about the previous addendum. It did ask, however, that the EIR addendum be revised to clarify some things. And it wanted us to clarify that although the construction of a north side road has been moved to the long-term portion of the master plan, ultimate construction of that road may not be feasible. And then they wanted us to clearly define what the scope of the long-term project would be in the event that the north side road was not built or was not built prior to any other development set forth in the long term. And then third, they wanted it just to be very clear that supplemental or subsequent environmental review of significant new environmental effects stemming from future north side development that would occur before or in absence of the north side road. So that's what we've attempted to do Again, here's kind of the purpose statement of the revised addendum. That while the proposed North Side Road connection to Delray Gardens Drive is part of the long-term program of the master plan, construction of that road may not be feasible, given that it requires a general plan amendment from the city of Delray Oaks. And the city of Delray Oaks has stated that it presently does not intend to approve an amendment to its general plan to allow the road. So these are the modification, the additional project modifications, refined project modifications, specifically for that long-term scenario to ensure that additional impacts don't occur. So therefore, proposed long-term development of the north side of the airport has been adjusted to incorporate the following. A, unless and until the north side road is constructed, north side general light industrial and office park non-aviation development from the long-term airport master plan program shall not be approved or constructed. And the footnote just mentions that this condition is consistent with the original EIR that was certified by the board in 2018. It stated something like this or implied this in numerous places listed in that footnote. If other non-aviation northside development projects are proposed, further environmental review under CEQA is required. And again, the EIR stated that. And then B, so that was the non-aviation potential development. B covers aviation development. And it says, unless the north side road is constructed, traffic offsets shall be required for future long-term north side aviation development. Such development proposals would be conditioned to perform a building specific analysis that compares the existing traffic with the anticipated traffic to ensure that one-to-one traffic offsets would occur. And then these bullets just kind of say how that will play out. This requirement has to be demonstrated through further CEQA analysis. It can only occur after the district demonstrates that leases and approvals have been fully canceled and continued if they're being used for these traffic offsets, and that any long-term aviation related development shall not be allowed to increase the amount of traffic over what currently occurs from the airport's north side. Oh, I wanted to go back so that's the project as it's been refined. After the revised addendum was put into your application or your board packets, the city did request one additional language change. So this slide shows what that language change is, and it will become part of the addendum that you approve if that's what you do after this presentation and your discussion. And basically it was just adding some of the same language that they had already requested in other parts of the EIR addendum to this specific discussion of vehicle miles traveled, which was in the traffic analysis. So the red shows what they wanted us to add. I'll just read it for the record. So the language will now say, no change to the previously certified airport master plan EIR analysis for vehicle miles traveled is necessary for the long-term modifications, assuming that development of the non-aviation, general light industrial, and office park on the north side will not occur without construction of the north side road, and that further CEQA environmental review will occur for other non-aviation north side development projects. Further, consistent with Public Resources Code, Section 21099B3, the previously certified final EIR for the airport master plan and this addendum also analyzes the proposed project's potentially significant transportation impacts related to air quality, noise, and greenhouse gas emissions. However, further analysis of these impacts would be required in any future CEQA environmental review of other non-aviation north side development projects. So again, that language is consistent with clarifications that the city asked in other parts of the revised EIR addendum. As far as environmental considerations, I just wanted to point out that the proposed project modifications would have less impact than what was identified in the program EIR. And this is due primarily to a reduction in ARF activity off the airport and the removal of existing landscaping storage activities on the north side in terms of emissions, greenhouse gases, traffic. That would be less even if the north side road is constructed. If it's not constructed, then impacts associated with the north side road construction, future general light industrial and office park that was considered in the EIR. None of those impacts would occur. So the impacts would be much less than what was identified in the program EIR in terms of biological impacts, emissions, greenhouse gases, and traffic. And this is important because either way, whether the North Side Road is ultimately constructed in the long term or it's not, the impacts would be less than what was considered in the program EIR. And that's why we can do an addendum. So none of the conditions described in CEQA guidelines, section 15162, calling for preparation of a subsequent EIR have occurred. An addendum is an appropriate subsequent document to a previously certified EIR when some modifications to a project are necessary, but those changes do not create new or increased significant environmental impacts that warrant major revisions to the previous document. And then the state CEQA guidelines, section 15164C, provides that an addendum does not need to be circulated for public review. So that's the end of my presentation. Here's the board action. You've already done one of them. So I think we're at resolution number 1819. Resolution of the Monterey Peninsula Airport District to approve and certify revised addendum to final environmental impact report, mitigation monitoring and reporting program, related CEQA findings, and statement of overriding considerations for the minor project modifications to the approved Monterey Regional Airport Master Plan. So that's the end of my presentation. If you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer them, or someone else can.
Well, let's ask the board. Director Sabo, do you have any questions specific to this presentation?
I do, just two. Could you go all the way back to one of your first slides, the part that talks about the fire station?
This one
Let me look at
shows,
it.
let me get my face up here, that
Okay.
shows moving it from the south side over
Okay,
here.
yeah, go towards the end a little bit more. You have words about what the airport is not going to be required to do with the fire station.
Right here, public services.
Significant impacts on airport fire protection will not occur due to the proposed project modifications.
Correct.
And I think there's one other slide there deals with the fire protection. What will happen because of this modification to our working with other jurisdictions in the mutual aid category?
So I would say, Director Sabo, that this is not a change from the EIR. The only thing that changed on this is the timing going from phase 1 to phase 2. So all the other requirements are consistent with what was approved in the EIR.
Okay, I'm not sure I understood all that, but the essence of my question is that we eliminated the road, are no longer considering in the short term, the road through Del Reyes, which was an access route for the fire public services, fire protection, where they could access off the airport. Now we are precluded from that, if I understand correctly. We're precluded for going for the new location for the firehouse out to perform mutual aid activities with the community. We're pretty much restricted to dealing with on-airport things. Does this not significantly change our relationship with the communities here regarding mutual aid?
Director, it all depends upon who the provider of the fire service is. If it remains the city of Monterey, which is doubtful, then mutual aid would be their responsibility. Whoever provides our contract fire services would be responsible to organize mutual aid for on-airport incidents. the location of the new fire station does not contemplate off-airport activity.
Did it ever do that in the original master plan?
Discussions around the road, the new road, included some discussions about off-airport mutual aid by the contract service provider.
Okay.
Since that road is not there, what's being said is that it's much more difficult for the service provider to provide off-airport mutual aid.
Okay. All right. So I guess my understanding now is that we pretty much will not be doing mutual aid, regardless of whether it's Monterey, the city of Monterey providing it, or a private contractor. We will not be providing mutual aid because you can't get there in a reasonable period of time.
Our role in mutual aid will change,
Okay.
but we are still available to the community for certain services depending on staffing. But to respond to an alarm, for example, from airport property, that will change. Our role will change there.
Okay. All right. And then this is kind of a minor thing, but I think our original master plan was sent to, included a land use, airport land use portion to it. And the master plan and the airport land use plan were sent to the Airport Land Use Commission. Are any of the changes does any of the changes make this document subject to review once again by the Airport Land Use Commission?
It should not.
No, it should not, because the airport master plans, they're the general categories of whether it's aviation use or not have not changed. It's just reiterating in the addendum that additional CEQA analysis would need to occur before those future areas are allowed to build out and the impacts mitigated.
Okay. It was a consideration. I sit on the Airport Land Use Commission, and when we have a change in the master plan and any of the component parts, then it's subject to potential review by the Land Use Commission. There are no aviation components really to this thing, but I just wanted to ask the question so that we don't skip any steps in the process. I don't have any further questions.
Okay, thank you. And speaking of skipping steps, I did. Should have opened it up for public comment. I'll do that at this time. Any member of the public wishing to comment on this item before we return to board input, questions, and comments? Please raise your hand remotely if you have if you want to comment. Okay, seeing none, Director Curcio, do you have any questions?
I actually do have one question for some clarification. Going back to the vehicular traffic, what would trigger the month-to-month lease landscaping storage operations being removed?
When we are ready to actually trade that traffic. So when the hangars and the ARF are constructed and they're ready to be operational, then we would need to stop the month to months because we're trading traffic for traffic.
So at that point, whatever that would be, the landscaping business would be basically, the storage operation of the landscaping would be ended.
Correct.
Okay. That's all I have.
Director Leffel.
And I just want to thank staff and Judy for working through this. I know it was a lot of weekend hours and evening hours to get us to this point. So I think what you have is very succinct, and I believe it defines our position. And it's nice that we'll be able to move forward. So thank you.
Thank you. And I too agree. I think this really was a lot of clarification on where we've been on this. So thank you for that. I'm sorry, Chris, did you have something you wanted to comment on this? I've lost your image here on the screen, so,
No, not me. Thank you.
okay. Anything further, Mr. Lapierre?
Not from staff.
Okay. And no, nothing further from the legal end of this?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to,
I move that we adopt resolution 1819.
Second,
Okay, Director Curcio makes a motion to adopt the 1819, seconded by Director Leffel. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, thank you. We have one more in this series of three, don't we? Because good things happen in groups of three. That's what my mother always told me.
This is resolution 1820. It's a resolution of the Monterey Peninsula Airport District to approve the minor project modifications to the Monterey Regional Airport Master Plan. We've covered the minor modifications that we contemplate. This just formalizes their inclusion in the master plan.
So the first item we did was getting rid of what we had already done, the amendments, but not the original EIR. The second one is adopting the amendments to the EIR. This,
Addendum to
the EIR, and this is just adopting the amendments to the master plan, if I understand correctly.
That's correct.
Minor project modifications, yes.
Okay. Any member of the public wishing to comment on this item? If you're remote, please raise your hand remotely. Seeing none or hearing none, I turn back to the board. Director Leffel, do you have any comments on this?
No, I think
Or
that
questions? Or questions, I'm sorry, comments or questions, go ahead.
I have none. My comment is that I believe that the modifications are extremely minor. And I'm, again, very grateful that staff and consultants took the time to work through it. And I think we've got a good product.
Thank you, Director Curcio.
I have no questions, but again, I agree with Director Leffel. A big congratulations and a thank you to not only our legal team, but our staff as well. They've been working on this actually up until the minute, and including late last night and early this morning. So thanks very much for your good work.
Thank you, Director Sabo.
No questions or comment.
Thank you. And my congratulations for a finished product, and it's nice to have this behind us and so we can move forward. So thank you, everybody, for your hard work.
And Mr. Chair, since you do have another item here, it would be appropriate to open up for public comment again. since this is a
You
separate-
did.
I did.
You did, okay.
I did before I opened it up to our own comments.
That's right. Okay, sorry
Okay.
about that.
Mr. Chair, if you would, I'd also like to recognize the extremely diligent and hard work of the legal team as well.
Yes.
They've been extremely good to work with. They've guided us through very, very interesting process
Mhm.
and have done so quite well. And I think it's appropriate that the board recognize them specifically.
So yes, my congratulations to our legal team, to our staff that oversaw these intricate details and kept what was important in the forefront, and to the board for all your hard work staying on top of this. So thanks to all of us. Thank you, though. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I'm sorry, who seconded? Okay. So we have a motion to approve resolution 1820 made by Director Leffel, seconded by Director Curcio. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Board committee reports. Does anybody have a question on any staff report that came in before we go to standing committees?
Director or Chair Miller, I do have one question.
Yes.
And I'm looking at the complaint log that was in the package where TSA pulled out snack items. And that happened to me in Baltimore, and it happened to me about a year later in Philadelphia. And I saw that we had some new TSA people on the line when I came through about a week and a half ago. So is this just part of like their training and we get someone who's new, who's going by every little item?
I think that's a reasonable assumption, yes.
Mhm. Out of curiosity, what items were pulled?
It says a bar of chocolate, and when I saw it in Baltimore, they made little kids get rid of the gummy bears and Cheetos in their backpacks.
Mhm.
So it just seems like it's kind of random where it happens, because I've been traveling at least once a month and I've only seen it twice. And now we got it, so.
I know that on some of these screening devices, any dense organic substance like peanut butter, cheese, chocolate does indicate as a possible explosive on some of these scanning devices.
Yeah, it does. And TSA does have the ability to ask you to remove things from your luggage, from your carry-on, if they choose to. Some are a little bit more diligent.
Mhm.
Some are a little bit more by the book than others. And you're going to run into this on occasion.
Okay.
It's not a pronounced thing here that we're aware of yet.
Out of curiosity, what did they pull out of your item in Baltimore?
No, it wasn't me. It was the lady ahead of me with 4 kids. They went through their
Oh, the
backpack.
chocolate, the chocolate. I hope they ate the chocolate. I hope the kids ate the chocolate before they got on the plane.
Mary Ann, did they confiscate those gummy bears and chocolates? They confiscated.
They
Does
did in
TSA
Baltimore.
have the ability to confiscate candy bars as opposed to
Yes.
some illegal substance?
Yes, they do.
Yep.
And that's not identified on their website, no candy bars. What is the limit here,
Well, these are problems we're not going to be able to solve today, sadly.
Well, thanks for that, explaining that to me. Is there a limit to what they can do?
Not if you want to fly.
Naturally, there are some limits
Yeah.
I mean, there are limits as to what can happen, as whether you confiscate. Why some chocolate is confiscated and some is not, I can't tell you.
Yeah.
Just not, I don't know.
Okay. Budget and finance. Who's going to speak on that?
Mary Ann is,
Mary Ann?
yeah.
We basically spent a long time on the capital improvement proposed budget. And you'll see that as it comes forward at the complete finance budget workshop. And other than that, we went over, there were not many big anomalies budgeted versus actual. And a lot of the few things that were basically items of timing. The good news is that we were able to collect on Central Coast Cab, so that way overdue accounts receivable was cleared up. And so I think that's what I had. Bill?
Yeah, we did spend a lot of times on capital improvements, and I thank the executive director for starting to bring that to us at the finance committee early on, so that we can have a discussion. We had a difference of opinion here on the members of the committee regarding the proposed items that are to be included in the capital budget, which we will see in May workshop and a June final. The difference of opinion was that I believe that we should be very conservative with our capital expenditures and conserve our cash until such time as we clearly know what our funding plan is for the new terminal and the balance of the airport improvements. Marianne or Director Leffel had a different opinion, and so we are far apart on that matter, and it will continue on and come to the board for whether or not basically we should spend of our capital, our money right now that's in the CARES Act for capital improvements, or reserve that until we finally know exactly how much money we're going to get from the FAA to build a new terminal. So that was a substantial discussion. And I guess I also wanted to bring forward the fact that we had a great bottom line, but the fact of the matter is we only put like $4,000 into our cash reserves after you take all the deductions for capital improvements. And did I interrupt your?
No,
cell phone?
I apologize.
Yeah.
One of our directors is playing games.
Okay.
On my right.
So I forgot, lost my train of thought here, but basically we didn't put anything much towards our cash reserves, even though we had a substantial bottom line, a positive bottom line. And I think it's still important and deliver this to the board to protect our cash reserves as much as possible until we figure out exactly our funding plan for these major improvements we're planning at the airport. Other than that, I don't have anything to add to the Finance Committee. Does anybody have any questions?
I don't.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Air Service Marketing and Community Relations. Mr. Lapierre, can you comment briefly on that report that was generated for us?
Denise, can you put that up? This is the quarterly report that we received from our air service consultant, Landrum and Brown. I won't go through the entire presentation, but I do want to point out a couple of things. Advanced bookings. You can see we're in the blue on this bar chart, this eye chart bar chart. In the red or in the green is the United States. You can see we're running behind on advanced purchase or advanced bookings. There's a simple reason for that, and that's what we talked about earlier, and that's the lack of capacity at the airport. We're running 80+% load factors. There's not a lot of seats to take advanced bookings on. So that's part of the message here. Go ahead, next one. This one I like, and it shows that we're having some impact. One of the things that we talk about is leakage here. And back in March of 2021, 29% of the passengers that buy tickets within a 30-mile radius of Monterey Regional Airport, 29% of those people used this airport. 1 year later, that number is now 35%. So we've seen a 6% gain in recovery of our leakage in the span of a year. That's pretty good. And I think it's indicative of the service levels that we have, the marketing effort that we're doing, and the general knowledge of the community and the region. Go ahead with the next one. Something like that. Well, that's the end of the report. Okay, well, we'll just wing it. So the name of time.
Well, while we're doing that, can you answer a question on this chart here?
Sure.
Do we have any comparisons with 2019?
Not in that report. I'd have to go back and get those. I'm sure we do.
That'd be nice to know, 2021 was kind of an odd year. It was a COVID year, and it was well into the COVID period. So I would be interested in pre-COVID information in terms of our leakage. Then this chart here with the advanced bookings is, what are these? Are these head count, percentages of head counts, or what are they? Percentages of what?
Advanced bookings are exactly that. The number of people that are booking their airfare or their air travel in advance.
A percentage of what? Comparison to the previous year or something like that, or what?
No, these are actual numbers. These are actual numbers as reported. These are actual people that are booking their.
Okay, so if it says, just as a point of explanation, when it says 32% for a blue line.
Oh, you want to know what the percent change year over year.
Percent change year over year. Okay. All right, so it has something to do with the size of the airport or anything like that.
You look at the last graphic on this chart, which is March 28th to April 3rd. Our advanced bookings are 39% of what they were in 2021. That goes to what I was saying about, and that's a good way to interpret this slide. That goes to what I was saying about capacity. We were running 80+% load factors. The problem is we don't have enough seats. In comparison to the previous year, where we had more seats, more flights, we're seeing the impact of that lack of seats on our advanced bookings.
We had, so I understand, we had more seats in a COVID year than we do now.
So we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Okay, and more people booked on those.
Correct.
On those things.
Correct. Yet, the next slide indicates that the people in our 30-mile radius are using this airport more. So you're getting what we want out of this slide. We want people in the region to book out of this airport. So we're reaching the people. We don't have the seats to accommodate them. We could, that number 35% could realistically be even higher if we had more seats available.
It was hard for me to get my head around it. I kind of was figuring out, but given that last year, we were still suffering from all the COVID stuff, and our passenger counts were way down and all that. And to see that if we had more seats, we would have done a whole lot better.
It's realistic to assume that. We'll never know because we don't have the seats, but
yeah.
But when you're running 80 to 85% load factors, you're at basically capacity. Because the seats that are left are extremely expensive seats.
Okay.
So if we had more seats, we could accommodate more people.
Yeah, I kind of get that. I just noticed, and what was sticking in my mind is the report that it's in the finance section of the reports that we get. And the load factors down were in the 70s there, not in the 80s, and I was trying for year to date and for the month, I was trying to reconcile all that. And
welcome to my world. It's hard to reconcile load factors when we really don't have visibility on how the airlines calculate their load factors. The load factors in the financial report are simple calculations that we do internally. The load factors that the airlines report to DOT are different from what we calculate.
Okay, all right. I don't have any
Hard
further.
hard to get there.
I don't have any further questions on that. I was really struggling to understand. Oh, this chart, I don't understand at all. That one,
Oh,
is there any easy explanation for that that won't make my head hurt? This is the Monterey April flights are similar to 2019 levels. Slide.
this is if you look at each individual part of the graph, flights and seats, the percentage change is what you want to pay attention to. So in Dallas, for example, in April 2022, we had 89.7% of what we had in number of seats, what we had in 2019. Does that help you?
Yeah, okay. In 2019, were we serving Dallas then? Did we had Dallas?
Yeah.
So we didn't add, would we put a bigger airplane on? I'm just using that as an example.
The difference there is the second flight. In April of 2019, we only had one flight.
Okay, and then we're down to one flight again.
We're back up to
No.
2.
Oh, we're back up to 2. All right. And Phoenix, just to understand this chart, then Phoenix cut back a flight. Is that right?
And that's reflected there. Yeah.
Okay,
35% reduction in capacity.
okay.
That's because we're down one flight. We had 4 flights to Phoenix. Now we're down to 3.
Now, is Landerman Brown or whoever creating this report going to give this every month?
No, this is a quarterly report.
Just
Every 3
quarterly.
months, every 3 months, we'll get one of those.
Who did this again?
Landerman
I got
Brown.
Landerman. Okay, thank you.
It would be nice to track these over time. So, and it comes, so yeah, it was a great report. But just to reiterate, all of our roles right now seem to be with the pilot shortage, especially hitting the regional carriers that service this airport.
Yep.
And bigger aircraft. And I think we've demonstrated that we can fill bigger aircrafts. If they bring them, we'll fill them. So, and that's going to be your task moving forward, is to try to.
Right now, that's our approach, because there is an expansion in the number of flights that we can see because of the pilot shortage, but there certainly seems to be the opportunity to grow, to upgauge, if you will.
Right. And that brings the opportunity of moving away from a regional carrier to a mainline flight crew to handle that if these are bigger aircraft,
That would be the next step for us, yes, to
Yeah.
get to larger.
which would be huge
Yeah.
if we can make that happen.
Yeah.
Okay,
Just a reminder, I would very much like to see how this same chart looked for 2019.
I'll see what we can do.
To see about the leakage.
okay, thank you. If there's no more questions on that, we will move on to,
Mr. Chair,
yes,
I would like to add one other item to the report, because
go ahead.
I think it's really good news, and I think it's going to have a potential upside to our marketing.
Yes,
And that is that Executive Director Lapierre has engaged a group called the Abbey Agency.
yeah.
And they are going to work with the staff to continue developing our social media strategy. The focus of the effort will be external markets such as Chicago or New York, and other markets where connections are available through our nonstop service opportunities. And this will also be a coordinated effort locally to complement the advertising by Chidlaw Marketing. I think this is going to be a big help for Amanda. And this is going to really pump up the volume on our social media. And as we all know, it's without a doubt the most reasonable value in advertising. So
Yeah.
good news.
Yeah, a good return. Thank you for mentioning that. Good return on investment. Anything to report on that further?
No.
I think you're planning to come back to us during the budget session.
Yeah, the entire exercise here is to evaluate where we're at, develop a roadmap for where we're going, and as part of that roadmap, develop a budget to present to you as part of the budget process.
Very good. Okay, no questions on that. We'll move on to airport property and leases. So Director Curcio, it's just up to you.
My pleasure. Again, Executive Director Lapierre reported to us, gave us an update on the Motion Products takeover of the Forza Motors. It has still not been completely finished. There was a judgment against Forza of over $100,000, and I guess it was about 10 years old, if I'm remembering it correctly, that had not been cleared up. There's a whole other story about a Rolex watch in a box, but I don't think we need to get into that. However, my question is it, and I'll ask Scott, is there not a statute of limitations on this thing?
So yes, there is a statute of limitations on it. But typically a statute of limitations would be told every time, if a tenant has a debt, every time they make a rent payment, it renews the statute of limitations.
Oh, okay.
Now, having said that, this is, as near as we can tell in all of our records, this was a debt that was cleared up. I'm in the process of drafting a notice of release of all claims related to that.
And that should do it?
That should do it.
Okay. Stay tuned. Also, we talked about the closing of the sale transaction. Sky Park.
Yeah, Sky Park self.
To Maxi Sky Park LLC, as approved by the board. The transaction closed on April the 8th. So it's done.
You have a new tenant on the south side at Sky Park.
Nice. Does that end up giving us a few extra bucks?
It does give us a little kick, yes.
Cool. Lastly, and Mike, you may want to jump in on this. We talked a bit about the, you said that the draft budget for 2023 includes 175,000 for building repair and rehabilitation of the two buildings located at, is it 2801?
Correct.
Monterey Salinas Highway.
Yep.
And you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, I think we talked about this at some length when we asked the board to approve the replacement of the exterior deck for the large building, which is building A. I think I always get those confused. The building that Fenton and Keller is in, we replaced the deck there. As you start to look at our buildings over there that we acquired, we're going to need to, as landlords, start to put some money into those buildings to keep them healthy, keep them vital, and keep them rentable. So this is the beginning of that process. In particular, on the front building, the small building, the old Twin Sisters building, we're renewing the evaluation of whether or not that building should be raised or whether it should be remodeled and made rentable. So we've engaged some commercial real estate professionals, not just one, but three. And we're getting their analysis. We're going to refresh the analysis on the cost of mitigation of the environmental concerns. And then we'll bring back to the board what we believe we should do with that building, whether it is invest money into it and try to get a rental, or whether it's to raise it. That's a question that's been out there in the ethos since we bought the property. Initially, we thought we were going to raise the building, and we got a different evaluation of the building that said, no, it's not that. It's not as expensive as we originally thought to mitigate. We're going to go back and do that one more time and bring back to you a recommendation. The 175 for that building in particular is right now kind of a plug number until we get the evaluation done.
Is that rented right now? Is there any tenants in that?
There are no
No.
tenants. There hasn't been a tenant in that building since we've owned it.
It can't be in its current condition.
Now, the board chose to not re-tenant because of the environmental concerns. You've got asbestos and you've got lead paint in there.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Any possibilities with our new tenant on the self-storage that they'll take that little bit of property for expansion? Has there been any talk about
There's
that?
been a modest discussion about that during the transaction,
Okay,
but nothing formal yet.
okay, very good. Very good. Okay, any questions for lease development? Let's go on to local jurisdictions. We did not have any meeting, nor do I think we have anything scheduled, right?
Correct.
Okay. Local Agency Formation Commission, Director Leffel.
We meet next Monday.
Okay. Very good. Regional Taxi Authority, I don't think you had a meeting.
Nope.
Transportation Agency for Monterey County, Director Sabo. You guys always have meetings.
What exactly was the editorial comment supposed?
No, I can always look forward to hearing about TAMC. They always have a monthly meeting, don't they?
Yeah, they do. There wasn't much on their agenda except talking about legislative priorities, and it's traditional, as it is traditionally, the legislative priorities is to maximize the amount of federal highway funds and state transportation money for roads and safe streets and bicycle projects, so there wasn't anything that really affected the airport. I made a pitch for improvements to Highway 68 and that got the usual reception, like sit down, shut up and keep your feet off the seats, kid. But we're trying, and I think that Highway 68 improvement is really important to us. Anyhow, they did do something very good for us, and I proposed to Todd Muck and Mary Adams to maybe get some support from TAMC, which represents all of the mayors of the county and all of the district supervisors, to lend their support to a letter to the FAA supporting our safety improvements here at the airport. And they agreed to do that. And the letter was drafted. I don't know whether it actually went out of Todd's hands or Mary's hands or both. How did you finally resolve that? They did us a real service.
Yeah, they do letters of support. The way they do them traditionally is the executive director will sign those. So that's been signed and sent, both hard copy and email.
Okay. He had another one from Mary Adams, and I guess he didn't
That
send
one I
that one.
have not seen anything about.
Well, he had a proposal on the whole thing. But in any event, they did us a real service, and I'm hopeful that am I interrupting anything here?
Yes.
Okay. I'm hopeful that lends a little bit of credence with the FAA, in tilting the balance towards in this competitive competition for that $5 billion, so I don't have anything else to say about TAMC.
Thank you. Any questions on TAMC? Okay, Special Districts Association, Mary Ann, what's going on there?
Well, you were there last night. I wasn't.
I was not. I was sick last night, so I did not attend. So I apologize.
The presenter was Gina Arnold, who is the Community Government Relations Rep for PG&E. And it was good because I think what happens is the districts don't even know she's there until they get in trouble and then they need help. So she gave, I think, a very comprehensive presentation. I saw her slide deck before and it looked good. Robert Rivas is taking some legislation forward, which I think is important. And it just is being put forward AB 2234. And I think what it will do, it's going to provide some funding for some things that districts have not had funding for. So it's just now, he's just starting to formulate it, but I'll follow it and bring it forward.
Okay, very good. Also, you've got, and you're appearing as Hal Leffel. I assume that's just a error. Do we have legislative days coming up? You want to comment on that, or did that already happen?
No, that is May 15th, 16th, 17th, and I will be attending. It's really a good way to hear what other districts, high-performing districts are doing, and to share ideas. And if there's legislation that needs to be lobbied for, it's a good time to be there. So it's at the Sheridan in Sacramento this year.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any questions for Director Leffel?
Yeah, Marianne, I don't know whether the Special District Association set out an invitation to all the members for it that identified who the speaker was. I don't remember seeing that. I think Denise, you might have sent us something that said there's going to be a meeting, but I wasn't real clear on whether or not there was even going to be a speaker and all that. So I didn't quote see the invitation, and Chair Miller didn't. Yeah. Okay. Is it our local special district association's practice to send out an invitation and identify who the speaker is going to be, Marianne?
Absolutely. It comes from Paula Riso at the Marina Coast Water District. They are gracious enough to provide her as our secretary, and it should have come to Denise or Mike, and then forwarded out to all of you. So I will check with Paula and make sure that something comes out for the July meeting. If you would take your calendars out right now, you can mark July 19th. That will be the meeting. It'll be a Tuesday night at Bayonet Black Horse with Robert Rivas as the guest speaker.
Okay.
Very
I
good.
see you all writing it down frantically.
I already have it in my calendar. Not the guest speaker, but I do have the date highlighted. Ms. Adams, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted Marianne to know that we did not receive, neither Denise nor I received the notice of that meeting. We got it from you, Carl.
Yes.
So Denise has reached out and her name is now on that list.
Okay, very good. Thank you for taking care of that. Okay. Association of Bay Area Governments, Lisa is not here. I don't know if they had a meeting. Do you know? Lisa made some reference to, but nothing important, I think she said.
I'm sorry, I dropped off tracking that.
Bill, did you attend any meeting?
No, I didn't attend. I think she did. And they were approving the 20-year plan or whatever the next plan is. And they were discussing components of that. But because I looked at the agenda, but I didn't hear from her, so I didn't attend the meeting.
Okay. Okay, and Lisa's not here to comment, but I do remember her saying that there was nothing important that came out of that. Okay, pending requests. Does any member of the public wish to comment on, sorry again for being a little late here. Does any member of the public wish to comment on our standing committee reports, liaison or ad hoc committee reports? Okay, I don't see any. Let's go on to pending requests for future agenda. Does any member of the public wish to comment on that item?
We skipped board committee, acceptance of department reports.
No, we didn't.
I thought that was all part of this.
Yeah, we did.
Well-
We did that at the front end, Director.
Yeah, I asked if anybody had a comment of it on the department reports before we move
Oh, I
on to the
missed that.
committee
Yes.
report.
I just had a comment if we can return to that just for a moment.
Okay, yeah.
Um,
Mary Ann had a comment on one of the complaints about TSA, but
Yeah, okay, well, I kind of missed that. I guess I had the fire department, the fire chief indicated on his report that they were going to have a triennial fire exercise, but he didn't identify when it was. He said board members were entitled to attend or welcome to attend. I'd like to know when that exercise is. It's a hell of an event. You know,
He has it in his report.
is what?
It's in his report.
I didn't see the date.
No,
He-
it's in the report, Bill.
I didn't see the date in his report, but I might have missed it.
It's in.
May 24th.
Yeah.
Well, the time of day, you know, is like 8 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Dark 30.
Oh, yeah. It has to do with airplanes. That means you got to get out when the moon's out, you know, so.
Typically, Bill, I'll have to get you.
Yeah, if somebody could advise us.
Typically, it's in.
Yeah, I would like to attend that. And I guess the other question I missed was, we had a substantial number of delays versus very few cancellations. You know, I could understand if we had a lot of cancellations as well as delays, and you could do the pilot shortage and all that sort of thing. Do you have any sense for, or does the committee have any sense for why these delays are occurring? I mean, it's, people are missing connections in Dallas and Denver and all that.
It's endemic throughout the industry right now.
Delays?
Yes. Yeah, it is.
Well, we don't have major storms here. I guess that's.
No, it's endemic throughout the industry. It has a lot to do with crew availability. There are some, you know, you got to think more globally when you think about what causes delays. We may not have bad weather, but Dallas might, or Phoenix might. Believe it or not, once in a while they do get that. So you have to think a little bit more globally. Could be weather somewhere else that affects the routing of our aircraft that are used here. Could be crew shortage. I think probably delays are a lot more tolerable than a cancellation. So I'm happy about the fact that they're not canceling our flights. Wish there was more they could do to fix the delay issue.
Well, and I agree with you. Cancellations are really bad news. That really spoils everybody's day. The delays, I'm getting feedback is grumpiness, and grumpiness because they missed their connection in Dallas, or they missed their connection in Phoenix or Denver. And now they're having to be rescheduled, and that isn't always easy. So delays are important.
I'm not saying they're not. I'm
Yeah.
just saying that I'd much rather have a delay than a cancellation. But I think that what you need to understand is that it is endemic in the industry right now. It's not just here. I mean,
We're not getting delays. To the best of your knowledge, we're not getting delays due to equipment failures here. Is that right?
I'm not hearing that. I'm hearing pilot shortages and weather.
Yeah, okay. That was my questions. Thanks.
when they report a delay in our report that we get, I mean, it could be hours or it could be minutes too, right? It's,
Right.
it, I think they give you like a 10-minute leadway or some number like that.
I flew to Phoenix 2.5 weeks ago, and we were 45 minutes delayed because a landing aircraft had a flat tire on landing and ended up in the middle of the runway, and it took a few minutes for that aircraft to be moved.
Mhm.
Could be that, could be a number of different reasons for a delay, and it could be a number, could be a short time frame. I think FAA's criteria is if you're more than 10 minutes off schedule, you're considered delay.
Okay, and when they report a delay, this wouldn't be the delay that would show up on Phoenix's delays, not
No,
ours. right?
actually, it showed up here because it was at this airport. The aircraft was already here. Well, the aircraft was circling, ready to land. The aircraft that landed before it developed a flat tire on landing
Oh, here?
here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That is
That
us.
was our delay.
I misunderstood. I
I'm
thought
sorry.
that was a Phoenix delay.
No,
That was the FedEx airplane, the blue tire, right?
that's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Very good. So discussion for future agenda items.
Yes, Director, I do have an announcement.
Okay,
Yes, I'd like to announce at this time, and regretfully so, that effective May 1st, I will be resigning my position on the airport board. And I will be following up with a written communication to confirm with Executive Director Lapierre in the next day or so. That's it.
well, I mean, we've heard grumblings, but I'm really sorry to see you go, Gary. You've been a tremendous asset to this board. You brought a lot of experience, not only in hospitality, but in the region and the players, and you've had a great influence. So I'm sorry to see you go.
Well, I am as well. I have really enjoyed my time on this board, enjoyed working not only with all of my fellow directors, but also staff members as well. And I consider it nothing but a really positive experience. So appreciate that. Thank you. That's it.
Mr. Chair, if I
I'm sorry, the reason you're leaving is,
Well, actually, we're going to be moving
okay,
and we won't be in the airport district. End of June, and we'll no longer be in the airport district.
so you
Totally
could-
out of the district, all the way out of the district?
Yeah.
Okay.
so this isn't, you just got sick of us?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Mary Ann, you had a comment or?
I just wanted to say, Gary, thank you for stepping forward and serving the community very ably. And I've really enjoyed working with you, and look forward to working with you on something else.
As I will as well. Thanks, Mary Ann.
Okay, we as a board have to accept a resignation, right? So did we have to agendize this?
Well,
or-
you don't have to accept the resignation, but you do have an obligation. Let me share something here on the screen. Based on the fact that the vacancy would occur as of May 1, you have an obligation within the next 60 days either to appoint someone to that position, or it would typically trigger an automatic election, an automatic special election. Having said that, there is something interesting about the dates here. You'll notice at the bottom, within 130 days of a general election, the board could decide to leave the position vacant and allow it to be filled by the general election. So if you do not appoint somebody on or before July 1, 2022, then it could remain open without a special election. Having said that, that May 1 deadline, if you've got a 60-day window to appoint
I'm
somebody.
sorry, May 1 deadline?
I'm
He's
sorry,
leaving.
given a May 1, given a May 1 resignation, you have a 60-day window in which to appoint somebody.
Is that July 1 or some of these
believe
days
that's-
are, we have a
I believe that's
31
June-
day?
I believe that's June 30.
Okay,
So having said that, and this is not new, I've used this before, for example, when Director Nelson resigned, and also when Director Cyril resigned. You have a decision to make, you as a board have a decision to make, and Director Curcio, while you would still be on the board technically, because this is your seat that would be vacant, you are actually not allowed to participate in this. You're not allowed to help fill your own vacant seat. so to
I
speak.
understand.
Yeah, so the remaining 4 board members, we would need to have an agendized meeting at some point to determine, do you want to appoint someone? Do you want to hold a special election, or do you want to allow it to be within this 130-day window? If I heard correctly, that the effective May 1, that may not be a possibility. You may have only the choice of appoint someone or the special election. But you would need to make an affirmative decision, because within 60 days, if not, it's an automatic special election.
yeah, and
which I don't recommend with. an
Just with the
election
cost and
in
everything else.
Why wouldn't it be possible for the next general election?
Well, you have to be within 130 days.
Oh, and you
if
haven't
his-
done the counting
If the
yet.
resignation occurs on May 1,
Wow.
you'd be 131 days out from an election. So you would be required to do something.
Oh, Gary delayed his resignation letter for 2 days or 3 days. And then are we in then or?
You would be within that window where you could leave just 4 members on the board and leave that seat open.
Okay.
But again, if he said his resignation is effective May 1, that puts you more than 130 days out.
Well, we may have to address this in a special meeting.
Well, that's what I actually wanted to talk about is, would you like to have a special meeting to determine what you want to do?
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes, then I would suggest let's break out the calendars and figure out when we can have
Yeah.
that. Because otherwise, your next regular meeting is about a month from now.
Right.
You would have burned,
Half of our time,
about a half.
just to make a decision if we're going to do it or not.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't have burned, you would have burned about 20 days worth or 15 days worth at least, because you've got today's the 20th of April, so it's not effective for another 10 days or so.
Okay. But why don't you guys talk amongst yourself? I'm just going to run
To your auxiliary office.
my 4th glass of water and 2 cups of coffee.
I understand what you've said so far. Now, in terms of appointments, and we've got these subdivisions, the districts and all that, and there's 2 of us in the same district right
Yes.
now. How does that sort out, going forward for an appointment or 130-day general election thing?
So the only focus is on the seat that is being vacated. The seat that's being vacated is an at-large seat, which means you could appoint someone from anywhere in the district. And that individual would fill his seat until November. If that person lived in an area that was up for election in November, that individual would be able to run from that district in November. If you were to appoint somebody, and I'll use, because you're both here, I'll use Carl and I'll use you, Director Sabo. If you were to appoint somebody from district number 2, which I think it's number 2 that you're in.
Yeah, 2, I'm in 2.
You're in 2.
And Gary's in 2.
Yes, well, Gary's in 2, but remember, Gary's actually not in 2 yet. Gary is an at-large because of when he ran last time around.
Okay. So
So
he's still in that.
so he's still an at-large.
Yeah,
So
we could appoint somebody at large.
correct. And so what would happen is, and I'm going through just a scenario here, Director Miller, because Director Sable asked a question about appointments. If you were to appoint someone from area number 2, area number 2 is not up for an election in 2022. So if you were to appoint someone from that district in November, they would come off the board and would not be able to run for re-election until 2024. Because area 2 is not up in 2022.
Okay,
If you're to, and
but they
again,
would be forced off the board
they would be, because
because
the at-large
they were
term-
really, we appointed them as an at-large member. Is that
That's
right?
correct. They only get what Director Curcio has in whatever seat he holds. And again, I'm gonna pick on, because the 2 of you are here, I'm picking on now, if you were to appoint somebody in Director Miller's district, then that person could, in theory, run for reelection, or run for election, because that district is up.
Right.
Now.
But
you-
they would be running without any prior association with the board,
That's-
It's just-
they would-
they're
Well,
just
they'd be running
citizens.
as an at-large member. So they,
That's correct. They would not carry the title of incumbent because they were not elected previously.
Okay,
They would just be running if they decide to
I
run.
believe our county will allow them to say appointed incumbent.
Yeah, I will tell you that does not comply with the election code.
Oh, really?
The county may allow that, but that does not comport with the election code. Incumbent, the definition of an incumbent is someone who's in the position who was put there by the voters. And that's straight out of the election code. Now, what the county allows, again.
That's how they handled it in the past.
Yeah, not my issue,
Okay.
so to speak, but technically they would not be an incumbent.
So going back to what you said, the person that from Carl's current district is who would be running as an at-large person, right? No, they'd be running from his
They
district.
would be, because we are now fully into the district, the by district process. In November, the last two districts will be going into that process. Right now, you have the three directors who were coming from districts. And then the other two will come in this year. So the two districts that are open, that are up for election this year in November are district, help me out with the number,
5 and 3.
5 and 3.
With, if it's okay, I'm going to dismiss, I'm going to leave now because I'm really not really part of the rest of this discussion.
That's,
Does that work for
Yes.
everybody? That way you can continue your discussion, and
Yeah.
if you want me to stay, I will, but
No, if you have better things to do, again, you're not allowed to participate. in
Right,
this,
that's
so
what I
other than that,
thought.
you're just-
Okay.
And
At this
we're
point,
at the
I'm
end of
just
the
having a
meeting, so thank you.
Gentlemen, I have to leave. I've got tickets and I have to, I'm leaving you. So you're gonna lose a quorum.
Yeah.
Would you?
We will,
I don't know the circumstances.
let me just ask before we lose a quorum, would you like to have a special meeting to
Like
determine
2 or 3
what to
days,
do?
you know, I'm-
If
Yes.
so, I will
Maybe.
if so, I will
Is
coordinate
is
that.
a
Next week.
well, I don't know.
Okay.
I'll think about it.
Mary Ann, before you leave, 25, 26 work for you?
Let me know.
Yeah.
Hang on. Bill, does the 25th or 26th work for you?
That's Monday, Tuesday,
25th of what?
next week.
Oh,
Monday or Tuesday of next week.
All right.
Scott says Monday works for him. We can do it virtually. if
And
that-
what,
if that
in the
works.
morning, I've got the Airport Land Use Commission next Monday, starting at 1:30. You know, what time were you planning on that, on Monday?
Open discussion. We could do it in the morning. Could do.
And
9
that's a
o'clock, 10
special meeting
o'clock?
just for this
Yes.
election business here.
That's
And we're gonna do this remotely, right?
We certainly can. I would say that's probably most convenient for
Yeah.
everyone.
I can do Monday, like in the morning, you know, up until noon, 12:30.
Mary
Yeah,
Ann,
I'm
is that-
available Monday or Tuesday.
I can
Mary
do
Ann?
it if we do it at 8:30 or 9. I have a 10:30 appointment.
Okay.
What was the other date, Carl?
About-
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
You want to do it on Tuesday?
I can't do Tuesday.
Okay, we won't do it on Tuesday.
About Monday at 9 o'clock.
Monday night.
Does that-
Okay,
For me.
That work for everyone?
Yep.
yeah.
We'll check in with Director Sani and make sure that works for her too.
Well, I hope I remember everything you
make it
said
virtual.
about this,
We'll-
which shall the peas under, you know, my goodness.
Yeah, just strap in because there's going to be a lot of these special meetings.
Oh, no, I'm just talking about this one, this district and the voting sequences,
Oh, yeah.
really. It's hard. How did you get this down so well? You sound like you know
Carl,
it.
can we adjourn? Carl?
Yes, we can adjourn. Do you have any future agenda items, Mary Ann?
I do not.
Bill, do you have any?
No.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.